Nick, thank you very much for your time. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you, and I just want to say thank you very much for coming around and giving us a bit of exposure on this. Really appreciate it.
I was just looking at some of the documentation. This is huge, 112 teams. Please tell us more about it.
Yeah, it is. I think it's the biggest junior futsal tournament in the country. It has to be. So basically, futsal is a massive part of our coaching program. It all revolves around the game of futsal. We believe it to be one of the best development tools for young players. We have our skills badge challenge where we teach 200 skills to players that they learn bilaterally, and we get them to express themselves through the game of futsal. So of course, with only 5 players on the pitch, they're always attacking, always defending, always receiving the ball, always dribbling, always transition moments. So the game has absolutely everything. So that's why I think our football schools are so successful, and we're able to entrench those good habits into the kids. So this tournament is 16 Gauteng schools, well in fact 14 Gauteng schools, and we have Nelspruit and Middelburg that have joined us for this tournament. 4 venues, 4 soccer schools at each venue, and we're playing off to see who's king of the court. So today at Four Ways, where we are now, we've got the winners of each of those 4 groups to take home the grand prize.
Nick, like I said, you mentioned the importance of these young kids at this age to be playing futsal, and you mentioned that they get to touch the ball a little bit more. Now I notice obviously the pitch size, the ball size, all those components. How important are they that you use the correct ball size, the correct pitch size, correct goal size at this age for their development?
Well, it's absolutely massive. And look, I think we learned from Brazil and the Latin countries, Spain, Portugal, Uruguay. The game's been around for years. And if we look how successful they've been, we look at the top 300 players that have ever existed in world football, the majority of them, very high percentage, probably 90, all have a futsal background. Those countries tend to play their young kids in the game of futsal until 13, 14 years of age before they go and start playing on grass and expanding their game on those surfaces. So we learned from that. And remember, I started this project where I was based overseas with our previous organization, Brazilian Soccer Schools, and then we put the focus on this country, and it's been 10, 12 years, and it's really worked for us. If you look at the amount of players that we have in the GDL at the moment across all the teams, they've all come from this background. So you're quite right, the smaller, heavier ball makes the kids express themselves. It's a bit easier to control. It entrenches those good habits, so to say. The ball itself is one of the best coaches I've ever met, and the smaller space, the fewer players is exactly that. It's like football on steroids. So we absolutely love it, and the kids do too.
Obviously, you have a relationship with SuperSport. Maybe you can just explain to us a general pathway. What will it be like from global schools sport into SuperSport first team? How does the pathway look like?
Right, so we first joined forces with SuperSport about 8 years ago now. So we formed a relationship, I think really from them seeing what we were able to achieve through the coaching program. We actually played a friendly against SuperSport United's academy teams, and I think they saw for themselves the benefits. So we created that relationship, and then we joined forces and became SuperSport United Soccer Schools, which was tremendous. And it gave our kids a pathway from our soccer schools, obviously into a professional football club, and allowed us also, SuperSport did, to form a junior academy. So when I first got involved, they really had an under 13 community team and started seriously from under 15. We then put the under 8s in place and went from under 8s right through to under 19s. And if we look at the modern global trends of the amount of players, we just have to look at Marcus Rashford, Trent, coming through those Man United, Liverpool academies. There's nothing like giving a kid a foundation at a very young age. So yeah, pathways are seriously important, but as you know, SuperSport can only house so many players, We're growing all the time with our soccer schools. So we're 35, 36 now around the country. We're opening in other countries in Africa. And SuperSport, as I say, 18 kids per squad. So that's why we have so many kids now that are going into teams like Sundowns, Chiefs, Highlands, Galaxy. Most of the GDL teams have players from our system now.
Nick, just a refresher, because I've noticed from time to time I will post a player and it's either you or some of your guys will say, this one has been through our program. So there's a lot of players, not just in SuperSport but outside SuperSport. But how many that you can mention perhaps that have reached the professional level that came through to some of these programs?
Wow, I'm very proud of that. So of course Lyle Foster at Burnley, he was with us and played just down the road at our first school at Dainfern. He trained with us for several years. Keegan Allen, he was playing for Swallows. But the European-based players I'd really like to mention. So we have a young kid, Jaden Adeteba at Arsenal. He's under 13, under 14 this year. We have Gabriel Babir at PSG. Michael and Ethan de Comnu at Vitesse. Tuto at Feyenoord. And it's growing and growing. It's difficult for me to mention all the names. But yes, also I think what we're very proud of is we have 8-9 players in SuperSport's Disky team at the moment. That's the top of the league, that all started in our junior academy from 5-6 years of age. So yeah, it's taken us 10, 11, 12 years now, but I think we're showing that our system seriously works and has benefits.
You mentioned 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds. Most players in South Africa, obviously because of the diversity of the country, will only get into formal academies at maybe 14, 15 and 13. And obviously there's then a gap from those who started at 5 because they started ball mastery early. How big is the gap and how important is it they start as early as possible?
Sure. The gap that opens up is massive, and it's so important to start as young as possible. You know, football is one of the most complex sports in the world. So that ball mastery, I think as soon as kids can walk, if they learn to use all 6 areas of both their feet, being able to push, pull the ball, use the inside, outside, sole areas of their feet, that's absolutely massive, and it's the game changer really. So we look at the countries that have dominated the World Cup. I think it's seven countries that have ever won it. They all start awfully early, and those kids all go through a ball mastery program before. Do you know what I always say? I always say, master your instrument before you join the orchestra. I think that explains an awful lot. But you're quite right. We've historically started late because of demographics, a lot of problems, issues that we've had in this country. But my firm belief is that if we could get every kid, all the schools on this program, even get it to the parents, and football kind of starts at home, and parents could start teaching the kids, getting them to spend time with the ball. I seriously believe, and I believe this from the bottom of my heart, because I see a lot of synergy with Africa and South America. I believe the World Cup would stay in Africa. I think if we got our structures right and we worked with our talent as we should through those right structures, that World Cup would stay in Africa.
Nick, thank you very much for your time. Always a pleasure talking to you. Always learn something new. So really appreciate it. Thank you very much and all the best to the tournament.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.